and LBB. This is the cricket edition we're doing. We're running into all things around sports and cricket and even all the careers that are blooming around it, right? We had a fabulous first session. We actually dug into how brands are working around the entire cricketing and sports space. We also dug a little bit into sports analysis and analytics. Today, we're going to go deeper into that aspect of it. We're going deeper into data, and we kind of what we're really trying to focus on today is to get deeper into data science in sports. And we have two fabulous guests today. We have Abhishek Binaykia, he leads product ops and marketing at Spektacom. And we have Ramakrishnan Subramanian, aka Ramki, who's the founder and CEO at SportsMechanics. Interestingly, Ramki was a feature in a small way in our last session because Gaurav, who was on it, had started his career off at SportsMechanics. So he mentioned that, and we told a lot of the people that Ramki is going to be in the next one. So welcome both of you. Ramki's camera is still not on, so I'm going to wait for that to kind of come on so we can kick this one off. Yeah, there it is. Yes. Thank you both of you for taking time on what, if depending on the city you're in, looks like a lovely evening, at least for me. I'm not sure how it is for both of you right now. But
very good. Thanks for having us.
Awesome. We're all joining in from different places. So I want to kick this one off. I want to first go to Ramki and ask you, there was a time when you mentioned technology and sports. Those two would not really be thought of in the same space, but we've seen so many strides. We've seen so much kind of evolve in that space. What for you has been the fundamental change in the way sports as an overall piece and technology have kind of started to work together from a much broader lens?
Okay, so sports industry as such is very rigid in embracing anything new. And we've been into sports and analytics from 2001 onwards. And pretty much at that point of time, nobody knew what I was talking about, had a lot of resistance to change. People didn't accept what we were saying. We really had to struggle to really make them understand what can be done. And it has been there right from even today, even after so much of evangelization today. Lot of the activities in sports is pretty much nascent. It's not data driven. It's not scientific yet. If you're talking from a coaching perspective, pretty much naked eye coaching and oral feedback is what we have. Not only in India. I mean, the surprising aspect has been a discovery for us that around the world, 8 to 19. The coaching is done with naked eye and oral feedback. There is no structured way of approaching it. And whenever we ask the parents, they say, hey, he's going to our academy with a big bag and nobody knows what he's doing there. There is no feedback from the coaches, and that's a big gap out there. There are about 25 million kids roughly playing cricket in this country, and there are hardly about 3,000 accredited coaches. So like in education, there's a huge shortage of coaches. I'm talking about the number of coaches itself is not there. And forget about the quality. So it's a classic use case for AI ML to come in and supplement the shortage of the coaches, and how coaching can be done very, very differently, and how we can unlock the new possibilities is what we can discuss as we go along.
Thanks for that. And it's interesting that you say about how this whole thing has progressed, right? I mean, there obviously was a time when it'd be very basic, and these days you don't just have. And actually, we actually spoke about in the last session. We spoke about how data is now even becoming part of the content that people consume now when they're watching a match and they're watching a game, and it's become so packaged to even how consumers are taking sports in, and what more can happen. I actually want to ask Abhishek this. Abhishek, what brought you towards this space? You obviously have a history in playing sport, but what brought you to this space, and what was the opportunity that led you there?
So yeah, I used to play. I was state champion, junior champion in badminton. So I've played at national level. My background, although is very much into high tech, I was in the mobile semiconductor space, but sports was always a big passion. So I was involved with the IPL right from its outset. even though I was in the States. And then when I returned back in 2015, I was consulting for 2 franchises on digital transformation, because at that time, fan engagement was, again, to what Ramki says, it's still not. Franchises in India especially don't view fan engagement as something that's very important up until recently, and that's only picked up in the last few years or so. But there's massive opportunity there, both in terms of how you engage fans, the kind of data you provide, the kind of content you create, and that's been an eye opener for a lot of them as they've moved forward. So I started there. And then Anil Kumble, of course, he doesn't need any introduction. He had just started Spektacom at the time. So he and I met, and we had common interests. And since then, we've been together trying to include IoT and ML-driven technologies, starting with cricket. And of course, the idea is to expand to other sports as well.
No, this is an interesting point you just made, right? Is the fact that in many ways that as this kind of scaled up, it's actually been even the players saying, okay, can I get more data? Can I have more understanding of how I can, and kind of build that out? Ramki, I want to ask you, this is the fact that have you seen this push for saying players really looking at how they can actually leverage technology and data to really improve how they play, being a strong driver towards this kind of scaling out, rather than, let's say, the organizations, etc., obviously do want it, but at some point you need the players to say, no, I want this can help me. Do you think that's been one of the key things?
Absolutely. When I started, I was the first performance analyst for the Indian team, and I joined the team in 2003. And at that point of time, everybody kind of, not many people understood within the team as to what can a guy with a computer do there, and what is a computer doing in the dressing room. These are all the questions which are asked out there. But firmly, we believe that we can add a lot of value in what we can do. And for the first time, we were providing competitive intelligence for the Indian team to prepare against Australia. So I asked Saurabh whether you have any information about the opponent, and he said no. Then I said, how do you prepare? He said, we all have played again, so it will be an informal a discussion where we'll all pass on the knowledge. So I said, if you know somebody from ESPN, and if you can get me the tapes of the Ashes series, I can help you. And he came to Australia with armed with 25 VHS tapes. Those days it was the VHS tapes, right? Yeah. And my first week, Australia was my first tour. My first week in Australia, I didn't see the outside world. I was locked inside my room, digitizing those 25 VHS tapes, and then mining that and providing the information for the first time in the Indian cricket team history. Competitive intelligence was provided for the team, and that really paved the way for me to settle down within the team. Otherwise, people were skeptical as to what is and in India it's always like, what cricket have you played, right? So there are many players also who ask me that question, what cricket have you played, and to come and sarcastically. So we had to respond in a particular manner, and then and slowly the word spread around as to what is the value add which you can bring to the table. And the team realized how, because everybody have their own learning styles, each of the player, and for Anil Kumble, he will push you to get more and more data because he's analytical by nature. For somebody like Harbhajan Singh, he may not believe in too much of data. So you'll have to bring around everybody and make them understand what is the kind of value add we can bring to them and how we can enhance their performance. Each one, because somebody is visual in nature, somebody may be acoustic in nature, and they all get switched on when they enter the ground because that's their office. Yeah. So if you talk to them in a boardroom, they may not be switched on. The way you pass on the information to them and how, because 25% for me, it's 25% is doing all the data, collecting all the data, doing all the research and back-end stuff. 25% goes into how well it is embedded into your subconscious mind. And 50% goes into the execution. So how well the player executes depends upon the first two blocks. So, and given the styles and the absorption levels of each player, you have to serve them and give them different dosages of the content, which is tailor-made, customized for them. And we can do that. Slowly, we have improved over to personalize the content based on each individual style and need and all that. So it's been quite a learning journey. Been with the team for 19 years now, so there are a lot of templates, a lot of hits and misses, I would say, which you learn from.
Just picking up from that, I think what's also an interesting part to take is the fact that teams in many ways also have needed almost like a foundational tech layer now added in, right? Just in terms of how, not every aspect how they function. And most people don't really realize how many people and how much kind of goes into that now in modern sport versus how sport, used to be played in that sense. So, Abhishek, you mentioned that you kind of came in, from a digital transformation point of view, and I know SportsMechanics does that well. This is a question I want to ask both of you. I'll start off with you, Abhishek. Is that when you look at that aspect of it, what have been pieces that have been added in, let's say, over the last like 10 years that have really changed how sport is played and how organizations around sport function?
So if you look at technologies, right, as they've been adopted, a lot of it in the past decade or so has been camera driven. A lot of video analysis that you have tapes, you sit down and you make sense of it, right? Now you tack on computer vision, some more intelligence to the cameras, and that gives you a little more intelligent information, more precise information as compared to just siphoning through hours and hours of tape and making your own determination. So I think progressively it started, obviously even today camera dominates a lot of the analysis that's done, but over the last few years you've seen sensor based tech also come in, right? So we talk a lot about IoT in a very loose way, but a lot of the sensors today that we see, and I think the US leagues are a good example to pick from, as well as the European soccer leagues. They've started sort of taking the lead in that, and now it's sort of percolated over to to the Indian sporting arena as well. What sensor-based tech does is it gives you a very precise information. So if it's on the equipment, it'll give you precisely what your bat speed was, for example, or what the shot power was, or where on the bat the ball make impact. And this kind of data was not available earlier, right? I mean, you can only do so much through watching videotapes. So now you combine IoT, machine learning, and now you build intelligence. You collect thousands of shots of data. I could tell you today why a Virat Kohli is how is his batting objectively different from Andre Russell. Right? Both hit 90-meter sixes. Russell, is more powerful. But again, the question begins: okay, Russell is raw power. How does Kohli get that much? Right? Does his bat speed more? Does he time the ball better? So now it was only commentators talking about what they felt that they saw, but now you can objectively look at that information because it's coming right from the equipment. So I think that's progressed. And I think sensor-based tech has sort of really come in and changed the paradigm. Today, if you see even in many leagues, there are signals being sent out, from the dugout to the captain on the field through numbers, right? So there's a lot of number crunching, data analysis that's now been adopted in live games, and all started with Billy Bean and in the Oakland A's, with Moneyball, right? That's where I think it all began, and now it's actually gone into live sport, real time analysis as well.
I have a feeling that in all these sessions, Moneyball keeps coming up. It came up in the last one as well as
it did. Okay.
I think that's what popularized it from I think in the most entertaining way possible. I'm going to ask you that from an operational standpoint, because I know this is also one core part of what you guys have been doing at SportsMechanics. What have you seen as specific aspects that have almost become like backbones to sports organizations beyond what Abhishek has just said?
Absolutely. See, today technology, cloud, data science are all integral part. And what we found out was initially when we started, there was not much of data being collected at all. So, we set up the first back-end data collection center for the Indian cricket team. And at that point, I was traveling with the team and I didn't have enough data. And John was putting a lot of pressure on me to get all the data. And, we got a lot of support initially from Cricinfo and Arun Gopalakrishnan, supported me. Then, the whole thing of setting up a data center at the bank to exclusively cater to the Indian team. And that's what we started. And we started collecting all matches which are live on television. We started collecting those videos, extracting that, mining that, and then providing the insights for the team. And that's a start today. It's about tracking about 8,000 cricketers or 10,000 cricketers max. And whether they play a practice game, whether they play a first class game or an international game, it's all collected, well analyzed, well researched, and we provide those content. So most important is in terms of collecting the data and then processing it, and then the analytics part and the visualization part, then the distribution part of it. How is the data being distributed to all the stakeholders in a timely way, in a personalized way, how that can be done. So this is the end-to-end. There is that's the technology part of it. So analytics and technology are horizontals on which the entire thing, whether you are concentrating on the performance side of it, or you're talking about the fan engagement side of it, or whether you're talking about the complete sports event management. Sports mechanics, we provide all the three areas. We are in the sports ERP side. We are also into coaching, which is the Drona virtual coaching part of it. And the third is in terms of game engages is the fan engagement side of it.
Yeah, we've got a few questions trickling, and I'll come to some of those as we kind of go along. Abhishek, I want to actually ask you this. You mentioned smart sensors and the entire technology around that, right? And I feel that on one end, you're also seeing consumers, I'd say consumer tech coming up in that space, but especially in sports, it's going to be key. How do you kind of when that kind of comes in, how do you kind of look at balancing that out with, and I feel especially with coaching as well, there's a balance between what is gut driven and what is innate knowledge, but also there is sensors give you so much more over there. What if you see examples about how people kind of use sensor data in terms of like what are the kind of use cases which are there which can kind of help you? One is the bat speed one you spoke about. I'm just saying beyond that, and especially where it's kind of going, if you can kind of give a few more examples and dig into that.
Yeah, certainly. So see, gut and instinct are always going to be there. It's never going to be data. I mean, too much data also is not good, right? So you've got to take it with a pinch of salt. Be able to, the intelligence comes in terms of how are you able to extract the information out of all the data you've collected that's relevant to your game, right? So today, especially in COVID times, virtual coaching was very important. So if you see certain apps, there's an app called Home Court in the US, which is augmented reality based. It'll give you information on basketball, in terms of how many dribbles you've had, what the trajectory of your shot is. What we do at Spektacom again is a bat sensor. So today, for example, we had a few students or kids who play in the academies, and their coaches come up and say, okay, last year or so, the game had sort of the WODS game had come down, and they couldn't understand why. Then they tried the sensor on, and they saw that they were able to figure out that okay, his backlift angle, the way he was lifting his bat, had gone. It was completely all over the place. Right, it wasn't what it was a year ago. When you go and look at the videos, you can see, visually also it was a little different. So minor adjustment was made, and again, the timing started coming back. So it's you get a lot of information because MEMS sensors will give you a lot of data. The idea is okay, you eventually have to figure out what's relevant to you and be able to extract that. This tech is also useful, even from a direct. It doesn't only need to be useful for professional players, right? Professionals will look at it very differently because they're already so good that they only need minor tweaks in their game. But for someone who's really starting off, a kid who's in an academy and all, you can use that in a little bit more sort of constructive way and use a little bit more of that data to create profiles. How is he playing against specific type of bowling? For example, you get information on your follow through angle, on your entire swing profile, along with bat speed and power and all of that. So yeah, I think it's up to the coach then to then figure out, okay, this is what's relevant to to my student, and then use that sort of very specifically in the analysis.
One thing, Varun, is Abhishek interestingly is talking about the sensors, and I would like to add that when we started, the use case for for instance the approach speed of the bowler, right? So Anil and Harbhajan, okay, let me take Harbhajan's example. Harbhajan bowled well when he's bowling between 79 to 83, his speed. But his speed, without, he's a very intense person, right? So with the match going on, tight situation, his approach speed to the wicket was faster. We ended up bowling faster and he went up to an 89 and he was ineffective at that speed. So we passed on that information that, hey, 79 to 83, whenever he crosses 79, 83, we send out the information to Harbhajan, and Anil was very, very also particular on that information, the one key information which they wanted to know about the speed. But everything depends upon the approach speed. And now with all the sensors, earlier we had to depend only on what the broadcaster showed, and within that we used to find patterns. Now with all the sensors, you get more data, and more the merrier, right? And of course, like Abhishek said, it has to be judiciously used. Whether it's a video, whether it's a data, everything has to be very judiciously used, very careful. We've seen many careers getting destroyed because of video analysis. Too much of analysis can lead to paralysis, and same way with the data, with people, I mean, you need to have a decent sample size to really come up with an accurate analysis. People do one match analysis and say, hey, this is the pattern, which is sometimes is not correct. So there has to be I mean, anything in moderation is always good. And, here again, you have to consume it. Players run away from data. So it's more for the coaches, the think tank, but you'll have to observe everything and translate it into a language in which they can understand. And that's the key for success, for implementation. Because otherwise, the players all run away from data. But there are certain players who push you, like Anil, like Ashwin. They all push you for more information. Whereas other players, they are not too very concerned about the data part of it. So you give them that golden nuggets. They are happy with that.
You actually answered one of the questions that came in the Q&A box, which basically focused on the fact that when players are actually playing, they're already under so much pressure. If you feed them too much numbers and data at that point in time, how do you balance out how much you kind of give them? How should you communicate to them? I think you've actually answered that question because I think that's relevant, right? Because obviously there's so much data, person's focusing on the game and you give them some. So how do you balance that out is, I think, an important piece there. There are actually a bunch of questions coming in. There's this, I'm actually going to pick one which I thought was interesting, is that just kind of going back to almost like at a basic level, if today somebody wants to have a career in data analysis and technology around sport, what should I inherently start off as? Like, what should I kind of, what do you need to upskill yourself on at a basic level? And then what would a career trajectory normally be like? I mean, this is to both of you, so feel free to jump in as and when a point comes up.
Sure. So see, within it's a very wide area, sports analysis and performance. You can be an electronics engineer and know how to design sensors and systems because again, it's the form factor is very key, especially when you're talking about sensor-based design. Right. Then there's of course the entire software portion to it, the logic, the brains that go into making sense of that data, more on the machine learning, data science side. And then you've got our typical sports analysts, who look at pretty much everything that comes in from camera-based data to the information that's coming out of the sensors and are able to then use their own models to make sense of that information. I think this is, many teams already have a lot of analysts, but I think it's going to become pretty much a set role in every sports franchise and team, where you'll have sort of a data intelligence sort of team working, together in conjunction to give out useful information to their players, both on the physical aspect and how they're doing, and also in terms of how their game is progressing. So different aspects. You've got the hardware side if you're interested in design and you're an engineering background. So as I said, you can go into design. You've obviously got the software and the algorithms and the logic piece, the machine learning, the pure data science piece. And then you've got the analyst role, right, which is making sense of that information.
See, there are different multiple opportunities for sports enthusiasts, sportsmen, everybody in today. The sports industry, I mean, I would say it is becoming an industry slowly. It's still not yet an established industry like in the US or Europe. But still, I think we are in the best phase ever, because India is such a young country. You don't have a prime minister tweeting about sports very often. So, it's all good. I mean, I think with the youngest population and, there's only one way to go in sport. And the youth are going to get attracted to sports and entertainment. Entertainment, we are there in a big way. But where are we in sports? It's all good that we are starting. We've been waiting for 19 years to have this kind of a momentum going. And I think sports will explode in this country, and there'll be a lot more careers coming out of sports. Today, I'm a classic example. I mean, I'm a cricketer myself, so played up to junior state, was in state provincials, then got into technology, couldn't keep away from sports, started converging sports and technology, and today, I run a sports analytics company. So it's opened up careers for multiple people, and particularly the gates opened up after IPL. But it took some time for IPL because even the IPL owners, franchisee owners, were not convinced that IPL was a good business model. So it took them 10 years for them to have an office. Most of the franchisees didn't have an office also. So, but today they all realize that they are making more money than the regular business. It's faster growing. Okay, so the kind of following and the kind of opportunities around the whole economy. Sports economy is going. I mean, it's they say it's growing at 2.5x the GDP. So as the economy grows, our sports economy will also grow, and there are a lot of opportunities. Whether it's on the coaching, if you want to become an analyst, you should know about the game, right? It's about the game, and coupled with your analytical capabilities, or your like Abhishek said, about with your engineering skills, and if you're into design and semiconductors and all that, you can do a lot of things around the hardware part of it. Today it's all hardware software combined, which is delivering the value. Otherwise, on to content, you can be a sports enthusiast, and you can generate a lot of content. Today the consumption patterns of the fans have changed. Everybody wants snackable content, and how it can be pushed to you. Today the fan goes in search of information, but how can we reverse it, saying the information should chase the fan? So a lot of opportunities around the content space, and how data-driven content, how it can how we can increase the fan, fuel the fan banter. A fan sentiment officer can be a new role, which can be there with all the franchisees or the brands, right? Community building.
Yeah.
So that's there. Or so if you're into sports management, I see a lot of youngsters going into studying sports management, and today the number of opportunities for them, unfortunately, are less, but it's all going to change. And when the change happens, it happens very, very fast. So a lot of people are going abroad and studying, sports management courses, but they have to be clear on what they are studying and why they are studying, and which area they want to go in. Because a lot of people don't understand the sports economy as such, and the different blocks which can be there. Whether you want to go on the fan engagement space, whether you go to the media side, whether you want to go on the brand side. Like I said, building communities, using sports as a consumer engagement vehicle, or whether you want to go into the sports management or the event management side of it, where you can provide a lot of services around the way the event is managed, or on the coaching, fitness, nutrition, mental conditioning, athletics. I mean, the technical skills. All these are some of the areas which opportunities for people, for youngsters to pursue. It all depends upon what their interest and aptitude is for, and what they're okay. Today, slowly it's becoming attractive. I'm sure there will be a lot of resistance from the parents, who discourage their kids to venture out anything in sports industry, because sports in our country is always honorary, not for profit. More for doing that. But today it's all changing, and for the sport to become successful, it has to be self-sustainable. It has to create an economy, and that's why IPL is such a big thing, because it has provided opportunity for so many youngsters. There is a lot of businesses which revolve around IPL, and that's the biggest part. I mean, that's what sports should do: create the economy around that, so multiple people in the sporting ecosystem get benefited. And same way in the fan engagement side, okay, we are all thrilled with the live streaming, but live streaming is like a VCR of old days. You just have to go forward, backward, but on the digital there is so much more which can be done, and there is so much more engagement which can be derived out of it. There is so much of profiling which can be done to help the franchisees understand their fans better and deliver the contextual content through the right channels. So whole wide spectrum of opportunities are available, and wherever I see it's only opportunities. But yes, whether they are going to earn as much as they do in the mainstream as in the thing, it may not be now. But yes, there will be early movers. You need to have the guts to come and jump into a emerging industry like this.
While you were saying, a lot of people actually popping in saying, okay, what all do I learn? How do I go about it? But I think what you've given everyone is almost like a charter saying this is all that's possible there. And I think there is no one way to get into what is a large space for a career, and there's so much that can actually be done there. I'm going to pick one of the pieces that we spoke of and actually turned to Abhishek, is that when we're talking about fan engagement, right? And looking at how the whole data and tech part of it works around that, even like how fantasy leagues have become a part of it. What's the when you look at that part of it, especially from a data and tech standpoint, what are the opportunities there, and what's actually happening there as well?
So it's a massive growth area, and you've got to look at fan engagement from at least two broad perspectives. One is in stadia, inside the stadium, and then obviously outside, people who are watching in their living rooms, and in general, even when there is no game going on, right? How do you still keep them engaged? So you'll see a lot of activity going on, with any franchise when that particular league is going on. But when it's an off period, are you still able to keep those fans with you, right? So in stadia, you'll see a lot of integration and deployment of technologies like RFID, all the way from RFID based ticketless access. You get in using your mobile phone, a simple barcode. Moment you enter, there are beacons there which will guide you to your seat. Cameras, if you look at really advanced stadiums, they have cameras with face recognition technologies which will look at your face and sentiments and say, okay, are you happy, are you sad? They know who exactly you are, where you're sitting. They'll send you tailored ads, in terms of, hey, you can go buy a jersey at this store. Or even data as simple as, okay, this washroom has the least line, based on where you're sitting. So a lot of and that makes the fan feel very it's a personalized experience, right? And they feel great about it. Sitting in a stadium, you can point, again, this is more premium access, but you can go to the app of the stadium or the team, and they'll give you sort of exclusive access to a specific play that just took place. So if you're talking about American football, if there was a touchdown, you just go to the app and you'll get data that others will not have access to. So that's in stadia, sort of more fan engagement. There's a lot of work being done there as well. In general, when you're sitting at home today, OTT, you've got Hotstar, Netflix, Amazon, all vying for broadcast rights. And I think it's fantastic because it allows you to personalize the content that is given to a specific fan. So if I'm paying, let's say, 15 rupees more, I can actually get access to information that is not publicly available on a standard broadcast. If I know who my favorite player is and I put in that information, I'll get data specific to that person. So teams are also now getting more aware of the fact that they need to know who their fans are, and it's not just about ticket sales and just pasting or putting 5 random posts on social media every day, right? So it's very targeted. You have to know your fan. You have to have a profile of exactly who your fan is, where they're based, who their favorite players are, what kind of content they consume, and create stuff accordingly. So yeah, I mean, there's tremendous importance to it. In fact, I think it was one of the top European clubs, Real Madrid or Barcelona, I can't recall, but when they looked at the data, they found that most of their biggest followers were in Indonesia. So it's a Spanish club, right? But you have to know where that content is being consumed, where they're actually buying merchandise. So that information is massive for revenue enhancement, for all the way from broadcast to the franchise to even the board, the state boards.
Yeah. There's actually a follow-up which actually someone actually dropped in for you as well, Abhishek. I'm going to come to that and then come to Ramki. Someone actually asked that, to understand how the sensor tech piece can actually go deeper and actually move into even content as well. Is there a strong, could that actually be a possibility? Is that already happening? How do we kind of take that and package it as content for consumers as well?
Yeah, so today, if you see what we're doing is one of the IPL franchises that uses our. In fact, I'll give you the example of the last Indian T20 league in 2020. Star Sports, used our tech to create a 30-segment package with about 5 franchises and 25 top players going in a power hitting contest, right? So they use the sensor on their bat. We recorded them in the nets hitting 6 balls each. So if Punjab is playing Mumbai, you put KL Rahul against Hardik Pandya, and you show them go head to head. That's massive content, right? I mean, people love to consume that kind of stuff. So that's one example. Today, franchises can create their own content based on this tech. You can have a power hitting contest and call fans to engage and compare their scores with one of the franchise stars. More than that, I think it's a massive scouting tool as well. Today, talents like the Pandya brothers and all, I mean, they were found pretty much playing street cricket, right? So luckily someone saw them and they got the break. But generally, in a country as massive as India with that much population, how do you identify, a team will have one talent day where you'll get to bowl 6 balls or hit 3 balls. And in that, you have to show that, you're really good. But now I'm sitting on data. So even if you're playing somewhere in Assam or wherever else, I know that, okay, out of 1,000 balls you've hit, I can see what your consistent bat speed was or what your power was, and I share that with the franchise, and they can call you for a specific trial. So I mean, there's just the opportunities are endless, and that's how you go deeper into creating content. And there are tech which can be taken live. I mean, you see information today coming in on live TV. You have this speed gun which shows, okay, I'm clocking 140, 150 plus. I mean, there's a lot more you can do. With stuff like this, it's more engaging with fans.
There's another question which actually, so Priyanshi from one of the attendees, she's actually asked a bunch of really good questions. Her question actually is, Ramki, that do you feel that one should have good knowledge about the sport? Like how, like you were asked, right? What cricket have you played, like you mentioned? So at which point, how much do you need to know about the sport versus how much does your data and analytics part kind of come in? So how do you balance that out? And what is the right mix in today's world? Do you need to have played the sport? Or need to have as much information, knowledge about it to be able to do this?
It depends upon. Sure. It depends upon what you want to do. If you want to go along with the team, then you need to have that experience of dealing with cricketers, understanding their psychology, and being in a team environment earlier. Okay, if that experience is there, it will help you. If it is brand new, if you're not there and they are going there and doing it, be slightly difficult for them to acclimatize them and do that, because the IQ levels have to match, and you can't be at a higher level, and you have to design, and sometimes you have to deliver value for the players. Ultimately, you are there to help them enhance their performance. So how you're going to do it is what you are. It doesn't matter what you have studied, what your qualifications are, and all that. But if you're looking at being at the back end and providing content for multiple people, whether it's the teams or whether it's the fans or whether it's the broadcasters or the media, you need to have basic knowledge about the content, about the game, and you need to be following the game. Without that, the passion will not be there. And so ultimately, that is one. And the other skill sets in terms of your analytical capability, your data science capability, or your engineering skills, all that will matter. Ultimately, the cricket IQ has to be high.
Yeah, for sure. I think, I think that's one of the core things, right? Is that you don't necessarily have to have been an expert player, but unless you understand all parts of it, you aren't really going to be able to add as much as you can. Abhishek, I'm just going to come to you on one specific one. Is that as we kind of move ahead and we're looking at stuff like mixed reality, we're looking at how AR plays into the game, etc. What kind of technologies are kind of coming in, especially taking it forward from sensor tech and kind of even moving ahead? What are the other kinds of tech-enabled pieces that are coming into this picture?
So the four, I think there's four key sort of technology pieces, pillars, so to say. IoT sensors one, computer vision is the other, machine learning, and then you've got this whole augmented reality, virtual reality, and mixed reality based tech. AR, VR, I think is still a little nascent, but there are some very cool use cases that are coming up. So if, for example, in virtual reality, you can actually put on the glasses. Let's say the Indian cricket team is playing at Lords, and you've got the broadcast stream sort of linked into the VR headset. Before the next batter goes in, he can actually go take a bat and start shadow hitting, which is actually not really shadow hitting, because he's getting, he'll be seeing the ball coming in at the exact pace of the pitch with the exact swing of the pitch, right? So even before, let's say, a Kohli goes out to bat, he knows that, okay, the ball is swinging, or it's bouncing, and he's prepared before he goes in. So these are sort of use cases that are coming in. AR based tech is already there. As I mentioned, there's a couple of apps that are there which enable you to sort of have a coachless experience. Even through sensor based tech like ours, you don't necessarily need a coach. You can just look at the data yourself, and you'll get specific analysis. It may not be precisely tailored to your specific need, but you'll get a plethora of information that you can then make sense of, or then take it to a coach and say, okay, look, this is my information. So I think within these four broad pillars, you'll see more advancements in the algorithms are going to get smarter, much better as more and more training data comes in. Today, if we use a lot of machine learning, and that's built out of models that have been trained on tens of thousands of shots of data that we've collected, over a few years. And I think that will keep increasing the accuracy and then obviously the value prop that the end user then sees.
There's actually an interesting question which I actually want to ask Ramki, and this is a question actually that came in last session, and I've kind of decided I'm going to ask all the guests this question. Is saying you mentioned that in the first you ended up spending your entire time in one room with the tapes. Has the life of a person who works around data and tech around sports changed? Are you still holed up in a room? Is that is that really the life, or what is that? What is a typical day like for
No,
someone who works in the space that you work in?
no, it's completely changed now. Okay, earlier when I was traveling, we didn't have the internet. We didn't have, it's all desktop based, and everybody used to. I used to slot the likes of Sachin, likes of Anil and Harbhajan when they want to see the video after the game. They would come and wait in the room and to watch there. Today it's all available on their mobile, and they are able to. It's all personalized. They can watch it anywhere, anytime, however they want it. The amount of time they need to spend is very, very little, because as I said, they have multiple activities, and how can you provide them with the key insights to them, and so that they don't get bored. So, but the video can be used for multiple purposes. Whether it's for motivational purposes, whether it's for analyzing your. It's not always analysis, right? You also motivate yourself. You want to look at some of your best knocks, go to bed in a positive frame of mind, end up in some of the high performance best practices which people use. The other one is in terms of the now with all the sensors and other things, the kind of explosion. There's a data explosion happening around the athlete, and you need somebody who can put together all these data and provide them with relevant insights and deliver. And I think there is a clear career opportunity for people who are interested in doing that, in terms of, because the kind of data which is coming up is, earlier I remember the fitness trainer used to see the color of the urine to see whether a player is hydrated or not, and they have to get in a place like Chennai, you have to start hydrating yourself 3 days before a game, and if the trainer finds somebody without a water bottle in Chennai, he's going to go after him. But today, you have all these sensors giving you real time, because when we all know that when you're dehydrated, your performance dropped down by 40-50%. You may be dehydrated, but you may not be thirsty. You ask for water when you're thirsty, right? And there are certain people who have who sweat more, and who have the problem. And if you're able to identify them before that they are getting dehydrated, and if you're taking timely intervention, and that's what technology can do today. So that's unlocking the new potential.
And I'm guessing a lot of the trainers are happy they no longer have to check. The urine part is now stuck in my head now. I'm like, thank God we moved ahead from that point of time for sure. Abhishek, what's a typical day like for you and everyone who works at your company?
It depends on the specific role, right? So given I run the company, so a lot of functions all the way from, making sure the product is built out right. Operationally, we are okay. Obviously, talking to different boards and players and trying to evangelize the technology, and then taking it to the consumer market. So different functions for me, but we've got a plethora of roles within the organization. We've got analysts who look at the data. We've got a very strong testing team that collects all this information for us. Obviously, engineering is a key part of it. Developing the software, the algorithms. All of that sort of comes in, and then marketing. Again, you can't ever overemphasize how important that is, and especially in a market like India. So yeah, typically all the functions that you see in a large company, but with a startup culture, right, where you have to roll up your sleeves and dab your hands into multiple different areas. So it's never like my marketing person will only be doing marketing. He'll be doing a bunch of other things as well. But yes, so yeah, we've got the same standard sort of functions that you'll see in any large organization.
Ramki, you mentioned one thing, and there's a question that's actually coming twice from different people. So I'm going to ask both of you this one. Is that the other aspect of, and as you were talking about the trainer, I was thinking about this with this question, is basically says that there is a certain level of medical science coming into connecting. So you have so much sensor data. You obviously can look at how you can make everything from their conditioning to how they can have more strength, how their cardio should function. Is there a point where these two are kind of merging together, where you can almost like enhance the performance of every single player basis how they are, like you mentioned, but take that further as well within stipulations?
Okay, the data from multiple sources come into one repository, then there is a lot of possibilities around for the different correlations which can happen around multiple things, right? And today, there is headphones called Halo headphones, which helps you to acquire skills much faster. It gets your brain into a neuroplastic state if you wear it for 20 minutes and then do your warm up, and then whatever skill you do, it gets embossed in your subconscious mind. Same way, multiple brain computer devices are coming to, EEG sensors are coming to determine your state of mind, how to prepare yourself better, how to unwind better. One of the things which we did was it's a random thing which we did around music. Okay, how music and performance. So we was talking to Kumaresh, who's my schoolmate and a violinist, and he was asking me how do players prepare for the game, and I said they all listen to music. They have these huge headphones, and they all go on the bus when they prepare, and they listen. He said, what kind of music? And he said Hindi music or classical music, whatever. And I asked him whether if there is any classical music, is there any way we can help them? And he said one thing which was very, very interesting. And there are 7 chakras in your body, and there are sapta swaras. So each swara can be used to manipulate a chakra. And I said that there are only 2 people who appreciate all this. One is Rahul Dravid, the other was Sachin Tendulkar. So, we actually prepared a clip which is customized for each individual based on their attributes and all that. And we gave it for them to prepare better. And, both of them listened to it, and it was distinctly unique because I made Viru sit down and listen. He was not able to listen to what Sachin listened for 12 or even 10 seconds. So that that really gives us an option of how. And today that's become there are apps called Brainwave and all, which can help you get into the frequency you want. You can manipulate the brain waves to a frequency in which you want to get into. Whether it's for preparing or unwinding or focus or concentration, rehab, a lot of things around the rehab, recovery, around the way people are prepared and the kind of workload which they are doing today. The recovery, rehab, and all have improved tremendously. A lot of science has come into that in terms of how a player, how quickly. Today, the most important player in the support staff in the team is the masseur and the physio, because they are the ones who can put the player on the ground. So it's very, very important, and a lot of science has come in there in terms of how one can help prepare. Because I've seen people really, really injured who can't walk, but the physio works on them, and half an hour later he's up at the ground. So it's so much value addition there in terms of so the entire recovery measures recovery, how we can recover the athlete from the workload the entire day, morning till evening. Their high anxiety, how we can help them calm down. The mental skills play a very, very important role, and today there are a lot of technologies coming around that space as well. How one can help them in their mental skills side of it.
So I'll add a couple of points, right? See, I think one of the underrated advantages of tech is the predictive piece of from a medical standpoint, right? You can looking at the data that comes out from sensors that athletes wear on their body, you can actually predict how their body's going to react and if they're going to break down. So I think that's very important, because if you can prevent an injury from happening, I think that's massive. Right, so that's one piece that I think has a lot of potential. The other one, if you look at just performance enhancement. So today, many teams, including the Indian cricket team, has this yo-yo test. So that when you have sensors in your body, it tells you where you stack up, vis-a-vis a certain benchmark, right? And what you need to do to get up there, right? And then what changes you need to make, not only to your regimen, your physical regimen, but also to your diet. And then you've got experts in the team that'll help you put all of that together and help you enhance your performance and get you up to a point where it actually is beneficial.
There are a lot of sensors. In fact, I was currently I'm using one. There's a sensor. It's a biomarker which monitors your blood glucose in real time, and for an athlete, that's of real information to get the blood glucose levels, and based on that, plan his nutrition, his recovery activities based on that. So there are plenty of options like that, and technology is driving it. So there are a lot more options and plenty of opportunities for data science guys, because it's all going to, as I said, there is an explosion of data which is happening. So you need people who can tell stories from the data.
Abhishek, there's a question that's kind of come in for you, saying you obviously have worked developing the tech with Microsoft. What are the gaps, or rather, it says what advantages and gaps, but I was saying, what are the gaps is what I think we focus on, especially when it comes to technology talent who want to work on sport. And what have you kind of seen that?
I think there's no dearth of talent in India. I mean, we've all the way from, I mean, you want machine learning engineers to analysts to hardware design guys. You find them and very good talent as well, and probably at much cheaper rates than you would somewhere else. What larger companies help with obviously is sort of accelerating that process and getting there faster, because they've already got a certain setup in place. They've got platforms that we can leverage. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. So today, if I'm using Azure IoT, for example, it's got a lot of stuff already built in that I don't need to then go in and build from scratch again. Right. So that's where the advantage obviously comes in partnering in choosing the right partner. You don't need to build everything in-house, and as a startup that's not even possible to do, quite frankly. So you've got to pick where your core strengths lie, where you can differentiate. You build that up, and then you find the right partner to go and then leverage that, complement that, and build your product
out. What's actually interesting about a lot of the questions, right? And this is actually one thing which I've actually been enjoying looking at, is a lot of the questions are around how people kind of build careers around data and tech. People have actually gone super deep in terms of what all they can actually do as possibilities, and that's actually been amazing to see. So if you had to break down the kinds of roles that someone could have, kind of career opportunities someone could have, especially in this space, and almost look at I like what Bhaumik has put on, saying what are the pyramid for analyst roles and people who work on data in the sports space, and what kind of positions are there, and what are maybe positions that can open up in the future. Abhishek, I'll start off with you, and I'll come to Ramki right after.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, a wide gamut of roles. But if you're looking specifically from an analyst standpoint, as I said, there will be a chief data officer position in pretty much every sports franchise or team, right? And that's your sort of going up. You start as an analyst, and then you move up the chain, and eventually until you get to the head of data intelligence in that particular organization. That being said, there's a lot of other opportunities. If you are with the sports team, obviously the analyst part again is probably the way to go if data science is of interest to you. If you're in a tech company like ours, again there's different areas, engineering, again software, variety of, even within engineering you've got hardware, software, data science that you can sort of have expertise in and be part of developing a solution that is then used by by teams and franchises. So that's one facet. Then you've got the entire fan engagement content piece as well. How do you create relevant content? How do you come up with models and integrate technologies that allow you to engage fans better? Esports is another massive growth area, right? Where today games are being developed. I mean, it's going to be a 3 billion industry by end of next year. Massive growth potential. So are you a good game developer? You can go develop games and create esport leagues and take part in that. So again, a variety of roles depending on what your area of interest is that you can pick and then move ahead in.
Just want to get from you as well in terms of what are the different kinds of roles, what kind of careers are opening up, and what are the possibilities that someone will kind of work towards if they want to build a career in this space?
As I told you earlier, the 3 blocks. Okay, whether you want to get onto the coaching performance side, that's one block available. You want to get into the management part of it, managing events, the analytics around that, the data coming out of that also is important. For instance, how we can do the scheduling, how we can optimize the schedule, how we can optimize the resource allocation. How can you make it more balanced, and how can you make sure that it's not biased towards any team. All that can possibilities are there now. In terms of your auction, okay, how your recruitment strategy. How do you today? Earlier people used to buy out of gut feel, right? 86 crores was spent, 85 crores was spent, pure gut feel. But today we are trying to marry that with the gut feel with the data science layer on top of it to make it a very strong, robust thing. Because ultimately, I mean, typically, I may be close to it, but it's about a 250 crore outlay for an IPL team every year. And typical your 4-year performance will depend upon how the decisions you make at the auction table. So how do you pick the players? How do you scout for talent? How do you build a model around identifying the top performers? And is there a way where we can like cricket is a team game, but people are still glorifying individual. So how can you reimagine the scorecard? The scorecard is a good thing, but it was developed when Test cricket was invented. But today T20 or T10 are all new phenomenon. How do you come up with new matrices which can measure performance very differently? So how do you like if you go to Nidahas Trophy, we all see Rohit Sharma got 66. The scorecard shows Rohit Sharma 66 and Dinesh Karthik some 20, 30 runs. We all know it was Dinesh Karthik's knock which clinched the tournament for us. So how do you measure performance? How do you glorify that knock, that innings? So scorecard, it's time for us to reimagine the scorecard. Plenty of ways in which the impact of the performance is more important than the performance of the player. I mean, I have scored only 30 runs, but like in Dinesh Karthik's case, but it was instrumental for me in winning the game. So you can't have the same weightage as the one who scored earlier, who set up the innings. So multiple ways of looking at things and multiple careers coming out of it. Selection, in terms of how the selection process can be, or the auction decisions can be made. How data science can help in building decision support systems. Then from a fan engagement perspective, plenty of options around the fan engagement space. That's a very emerging space. Like Abhishek rightly pointed out, esports is becoming big. And if you want to be an analyst physically, then you can be an analyst on the esports side of it as well, right? And there are plenty of opportunities around there. And what about fantasy? So fantasy is a new phenomenon, and so for why not a fantasy advisory, which can help gamers prepare for the game. So all those possibilities, new possibilities are there, and people are making a lot more money than what has been made so far. So it's becoming very, very interesting and very attractive. It all depends upon what you want to do. You have to be clear as an youngster. You have to be very clear what you want to do. There is so much of knowledge available on the internet. You can actually, a lot of people don't do that research. You have to do that research. Make yourself abreast of all the sports economy. What is it built on, and which are the ones which are you are most suited for. Because a lot of people come in and they say, okay, I want to be an analyst. I want to travel with the team. The first question I ask is, if there is somebody who's played for the state, would he be considered, or would the other analysts be considered? Okay, it depends upon, because the players are tuned to, they understand the psychology of the players. They understand high performance. They are in that ecosystem for a long time. So added with the data part of it, which is the analyst can push from back end. It's all about the last mile delivery. He has to be a domain expert. It will be better if he has domain skills as well. I'm not saying people who have not been there along with the team environment will not be successful, but comparatively they have a better chance because they are inside a team for a long time. They understand the psyche. They know what to tell, when to tell. And the dressing room, is very, very different when the team is winning. The dressing room is very different when the team is losing. So you got to be mindful of all that. You're dealing with people with high mood swings, high anxiety levels, and high precision is needed at that level, at the elite level, when you're dealing with them. So it's very, very important. And very, very important thing is about the psychology, as I said. How psychology and analytical ability can be combined, and how you can help players prepare for the game better. I think is a good combination.
I think that's a great place to kind of close this one off. Thank you, Abhishek. Thank you, Ramki. Thanks a ton for all the insights you kind of given us today. There are bunches I've taken which I didn't even know existed. I know that the audience has really enjoyed this one as well. There are a bunch more questions kind of coming in, but I feel that if you run through the entire conversation we had the last 1 hour, I think most of the questions that are coming in right now have been answered through this. So thanks a ton for taking the time.
Hey,
yes.
Varun, just a last parting thing. India can be a global leader in sports analytics. We may not be winning medals on our own in the Olympics in the short run, but we can definitely power everyone's victory.
Perfect. That's fabulous. It's a great way to, I think also for people to look at what they can upskill on, but at the end of the day, you're upskilling the entire sports ecosystem, right? To kind of move ahead from there. So thanks a ton, both of you. Thanks for being a part of upGrad and LBB's Fast Forward series. This is we talking about sports and cricket. We have one more session to go, which is the day after tomorrow. So make sure you tune in for that one. It's going to be a fun one as well. And so till then, have a good evening, everyone, and thank you again, Ramki. Thanks, Abhishek.
Thanks for having me. Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.